A woman buys a vintage mirror and soon learns that it doesn't reflect what's real, but something far more dangerous. When Clara stepped into the musty old estate sale on the outskirts of town, she hadn't expected to find anything special. The air smelled of dust and forgotten memories, with creaky wooden floors groaning beneath each step. But in the far corner of the parlor, behind a pile of worn furniture and cracked china, her eyes caught something extraordinary. A tall, antique mirror with an ornate brass frame curling like vines and roses. It was mesmerizing. Despite its age, the glass shimmered with an unusual clarity that drew her in like a magnet. The old man running the sale gave her a strange look when she pointed to it and offered a price far lower than she expected. "It's yours," he said quickly, almost too eagerly. Clara left that day with the mirror loaded into her car, unaware that she had taken home something far more than a decoration. At home, Clara placed the mirror in her hallway, right across from the staircase. It fit perfectly, like it belonged there. The intricate brass frame seemed even more beautiful in her warm lighting, casting soft reflections against the polished wood floor. She spent a few moments just admiring it, running her fingers across the elegant patterns carved into its surface. It gave the hallway a touch of old-world charm, making her house feel strangely richer, more alive. Visitors complimented it instantly, often stopping mid-sentence to glance into it. Clara herself would pause now and then to check her reflection, smiling at how elegant the mirror made everything around it look. It became a quiet obsession. Every time she passed by, she looked, and every time it seemed just a little different. She dismissed it as lighting tricks, a trick of the eye. The truth was beginning to reveal itself. It started small. A vase in the reflection was shifted slightly from where it stood in reality. Then a chair that had been moved the day before was still in its old place in the mirror. Clara stared at it, tilting her head, confused. She reached out and adjusted the vase, then looked into the mirror. No change. The mirror still showed it in its original position. Unease bloomed in her chest, subtle but persistent. She blamed fatigue, stress, even her glasses. But the more she tried to rationalize it, the more the mirror proved her wrong. Sometimes it was the color of a lamp. Other times, it was entire objects that appeared or vanished without explanation. Her hallway and the reflection seemed to exist in two different realities, connected only by that cold, flawless glass. And every time she looked, the mirror seemed one step ahead, rewriting the rules of reflection. Clara became obsessed. She would spend hours just watching the mirror, comparing every inch of her hallway to its mirrored version. What disturbed her most wasn't the inconsistencies, it was the changes she couldn't explain. Family photos disappeared from the reflected wall while remaining untouched in reality. Her coat rack shifted positions, or seemed to vanish altogether. One night, she saw her hallway in the mirror dimly lit with flickering light, even though all the lights in her home were off. Books appeared stacked on the floor in the reflection, yet none existed in her hallway. The mirror was rewriting space, piece by piece, as if building its own version of her home. She tried recording it with her phone, but every time she pointed the lens, the reflection looked perfectly normal. It only misbehaved when she was alone, watching. It wanted her attention, and it was getting it. One evening, Clara stopped cold in front of the mirror. In the reflection, she saw herself holding a glass of red wine, wearing a black dress she didn't own. Behind her stood a man she didn't recognize, smiling softly with his hand on her shoulder. Her real hallway was empty. Heart pounding, she reached for the mirror's surface, but her hand met cold glass. The version of herself in the mirror raised the wine glass in a silent toast and smirked. Moments later, everything returned to normal. The dreams began that night. Vivid memories of events she never lived. Dinners in candlelit rooms, arguments with strangers who called her by name, tears over tragedies she had never experienced. Each morning, she woke with a heavy heart, feeling grief for things that never happened. The mirror was showing her a life that felt just as real as her own. It was more than a reflection now. It was a storyteller Clara's sister visited one afternoon. They laughed and chatted over coffee, but when Clara passed by the mirror, her blood turned to ice. In the reflection, her sister's eyes were hollow sockets, her mouth twisted in a silent scream. Clara blinked, turned around. Everything was normal. She looked back. The horror returned. Her sister's reflection reached toward her through the glass, mouth moving but no words escaping. Clara staggered back, screaming. Her sister rushed to her, confused and worried, but the mirror had already changed. It showed reality again, mocking Clara's panic. These glitches became more frequent. Her mother's reflection appeared bruised and weeping. Her best friend was shown with her throat slit, standing behind Clara with empty eyes. Clara began avoiding the hallway entirely. She covered the mirror with a blanket, but it always found a way to uncover itself. It was feeding off her fear and twisting it into new nightmares. One night, Clara was reading in bed when she heard footsteps echoing from the hallway. She crept out and froze in the doorway. The mirror was uncovered again. Inside it, her reflection was standing there, staring at her, not mimicking her, but watching. It raised its hand and waved slowly. Clara stood still. She didn't move, but her reflection smiled darkly and turned, walking away into the depths of the mirrored hallway. Clara gasped. There was no hallway behind the mirror, yet her reflection disappeared into that false space, like it had always been there. She ran forward, slammed a towel over the glass, and locked herself in her room, shaking uncontrollably. The next day, she began seeing her reflection in places it shouldn't be, in store windows, in puddles, in black TV screens, always smiling, always moving on its own. It was no longer her. It had become something else, something alive. Clara searched desperately for answers. At a library downtown, she discovered an old journal hidden among estate sale documents. It belonged to a woman named Evelyn Roth, dated over a century ago. Evelyn had owned the same mirror. Her entries were filled with terror, describing visions of death, hallucinations, and something she called the other me. The final entry read, "It shows not what you are, but what you fear. The longer you look, the closer it gets. The mirror does not reflect, it consumes." Clara's breath caught in her throat. The curse was clear. The mirror used reflection to feed on fear, twisting it until it became real. She realized everyone who had ever owned it had likely been destroyed by their own imaginations made flesh. She understood now why the old man sold it so easily. She had to destroy it before it broke through for good. Clara could no longer tell what was real. She began seeing a pale child in the mirror, weeping silently in the corner of her hallway. An old woman sat in the stairwell, knitting something that unraveled as fast as it was made. None of them were ever physically present, but they returned nightly in the mirror's world. She saw herself at her own funeral, surrounded by people she didn't recognize. She watched flames engulf her home in the reflection, while her real house remained untouched. Sleep eluded her. Food lost its taste. Her hands shook, her mind slipping between reality and mirror-born hallucinations. The people in the mirror began speaking, mouthing words she couldn't hear, begging her to join them. Sometimes they screamed. She knew she couldn't wait much longer. Either she would go mad, or the mirror would finally let them through. She had one option left: destroy it. In the dead of night, Clara stood before the mirror, a sledgehammer in her hand. Her reflection smiled back, not in fear, but amusement. It was mocking her. Her distorted double held out a hand, beckoning. The figures behind her, the child, the woman, the strangers, all pressed against the other side of the glass. Clara screamed and swung the hammer with all her strength. The first hit sent a spiderweb of cracks across the surface. The reflection glitched, shuddering like static. Another hit, then another. The glass shattered in a rain of splinters and screams. Her hallway went silent. The air felt lighter. The mirror's frame lay broken, the glass in shards. For a moment, Clara just stood there, breathing. She didn't know if it was truly over, but the whispers had stopped. The figures were gone. She had survived. But somewhere in some dark corner of another home, a shard of that cursed mirror waited. If you enjoyed this twisted tale of cursed reflections and creeping terror, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a chilling story again. Have you ever seen something strange in the mirror? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, stay in the light and don't trust your reflection.